I know in some of my past posts we have talked about floating walls and non-floating walls in a basement and what havoc a non-floating wall can cause on the flooring in the upstairs on a basement, from the basement and being a non-floating wall. Well, you may be in a part of the country or a part of the world that doesn't have basements. In that case, this does not apply to you. But for those of you that have basements, there is usually a basement slab, which is the floor of the basement. And then there are walls for the interior walls that break up the rooms downstairs. And you may have an unfinished basement where you don't have those, but for the most part, even then, you might have floating walls if your house is built more recently than 1985. If you are in an older house and you have a basement, before then, you likely do not have floating walls. We learned about floating walls about that time, in the 1980s, and that caused some changes in the way that a basement walls would be finished. Because if you don't have a floating wall and you are in an older house, if the basement slabs settle due to compacting more, or they heave due to expansive soil underneath the house or moisture, it can cause damage to the rooms upstairs. If you have a floating wall was designed to eliminate that so that you didn't have those issues. So let's take a look now and see what a floating wall looks like compared to a non-floating wall. Okay, so here we go. So here's a very good design for a floating wall. A floating wall means that there is a double sill plate. This is the sill plate or the base plate. Here's the basement slab, which can move up or down. Here's the sill plate. And then there's a spike. This spike is purely to guide this upper wall from tilting one way or the other. And then in this case, they've suggested a 3-inch float between the bottom sill plate and the upper sill plate. What this allows is it allows the basement to go up and down, basement floor to go up and down without affecting the upper part of the wall. Why is that important? Well, because if you have a floating wall and the basement slab does move up and down, it won't cause damage for the most part, it won't cause damage to the upper floor above. And that's important because it can appear as if that is a foundation problem. And I'll explain to you in a little bit why it's not and how it benefits you. It's not a foundation problem because the foundation, if you followed any of my other posts, you'll remember that the foundation is the vertical concrete walls of the basement or the crawl space that hold up the rest of the house. Well, in this case, these are interior walls, so they do not hold up the rest of the house. They hold up the floors above, which is why you can have damage with floors above. So now let's look at what a non-floating wall would be.